The comment happened during our monthly family dinner at Marino's restaurant. Everyone in the family came together once every month to eat, talk, and spend time together. My son Ethan, who was 28 years old, sat beside me. He was wearing his favorite jeans and a simple t-shirt. He looked relaxed and happy. He had driven to the restaurant in his old Honda Civic. The car had a dent on the passenger door, but Ethan never worried about things like that. A little later, Victoria arrived with her husband Michael and their daughter Sophie. Victoria stepped out of her shiny BMW and walked into the restaurant with a big smile. As soon as she sat down, she started talking about houses. "We are looking at a beautiful new neighborhood," Victoria said proudly. "The starter homes cost only $400,000. But we are not looking at those. We are looking at the executive homes. Those start at $650,000. She sounded very proud of herself. Ethan smiled politely and nodded. Ethan had always been a quiet person. He liked listening more than talking. He never argued with people, even when they were rude to him. Victoria had always thought that his quiet behavior meant he was weak. "We hope to buy the house by spring," Victoria continued. "Michael's bonus should help us make the down payment." Then she looked directly at Ethan. "Of course, not everyone can do that." The table became a little uncomfortable. My mother tried to change the subject. "The breadsticks are really good tonight," she said with a smile. But Victoria was not ready to stop. "Some people are meant to own houses," she said. "And some people are meant to rent houses. It's not being mean. It's just the truth." Ethan continued eating his meal. He did not look upset at all. I knew my son very well. When someone tried to make him angry, he usually stayed calm. He would let them talk, and then continue living his life. Victoria knew very little about Ethan's life. "Take Ethan as an example," Victoria said while pointing her fork toward him. "He is 28 years old and still rents a small studio apartment downtown." She laughed a little. "No offense, Danny, but maybe home ownership just isn't for everyone." My father finally spoke. "Victoria," he said quietly. "That's enough." But Victoria only shrugged. "I'm just being realistic," she said. "The housing market is very hard these days. If you haven't started building wealth through property by your late 20s, then you may never catch up." Then she added another comment. "Especially on a technician's salary." She said the word technician as if it was something bad. The funny thing was that Ethan was not a technician at all. He worked as a lead systems engineer at a technology company. He had a very good job. But Victoria had never cared enough to learn what he really did. "Ethan does just fine," I said. "I'm sure he does," Victoria replied. Then she pretended to be kind. "Renting isn't a failure. Lots of people rent forever. It's just a little limiting." She took a sip of her drink. "You can't really build wealth. You don't own anything. You can't put down roots. You are always one lease away from having to move." Michael nodded slowly, but he looked uncomfortable. Their daughter Sophie was busy looking at her phone and paying no attention. Then Victoria laughed again. "Your son will never own a house." The whole table became silent. "And that's okay," she continued. "Not everyone is good at real estate investing. Some people are simply meant to be tenants." Nobody said anything. My mother stared down at her plate. My father slowly put down his fork. Even Sophie looked up from her phone for a moment. Ethan calmly picked up his glass and took a sip of water. "If you say so, Aunt Victoria," he said. His calm answer seemed to make Victoria even more annoyed. "I do say so," she replied. "I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to help you accept reality." She smiled. "The sooner you stop dreaming about owning a home and focus on being a good renter, the happier you'll be." That was the moment I decided I had heard enough. I reached into my pocket and took out my phone. Months earlier, Ethan had shared some important documents with me. He told me to keep copies just in case they were ever needed. At the time, I thought he was being overly careful. Now I understand exactly why. "Victoria," I said calmly, "I want to show you something." I opened the first document. It showed the deed to a beautiful 3-bedroom townhouse in the Pearl District. Ethan had bought it 2 years ago for $380,000. The home's value had already grown to about $490,000. I turned my phone toward Victoria. "Property number 1. Victoria looked at the screen. Her eyes suddenly became wide. "What is that?" she asked. "Ethan's first investment property," I said. "He bought it when he was 26. The entire table became quiet. Then I opened another document. "Property number 2. This one was a duplex in the Beaumont neighborhood. He bought this one 18 months ago," I explained. "He lives in one unit and rents the other unit." Victoria blinked. "That can't be." Before she could finish, I opened another file. "And property number 3. This one was a large 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in the Eastmoreland district. Ethan had purchased it only 1 month earlier. He paid for the entire house in cash. No loan. No mortgage. Cash." The color seemed to disappear from Victoria's face. Then I noticed something very interesting. I looked closely at the address. "Wait a second." I turned to Victoria. 1847 Maple Ridge Drive. She froze. I remembered that address. Isn't this the house you told me about 3 months ago? I asked. The one you called your dream house. Victoria did not answer. The one you lost because someone offered $20,000 above the asking price? Still no answer. The buyer paid all cash and had no conditions. The entire restaurant table felt silent. My father leaned forward. My mother covered her mouth in shock. Even Sophie had completely forgotten about her phone. But he's a technician, Victoria whispered. No, I said gently. He's a lead systems engineer. Then I told everyone the truth. Ethan earns $160,000 a year plus bonuses. Victoria stared at me. He has been putting money into his retirement account since he was 22. I continued. He saves carefully. He spends wisely. He invested his money instead of trying to look rich. Michael looked pale. But he drives that old Honda, Victoria said. And he wears simple clothes. Exactly, I replied. He drives a car that is already paid for. He wears clothes that are comfortable. I smiled. Ethan understands something very important. Everyone listened. He knows that looking rich and actually being rich are not the same thing. Then I opened another document. This duplex earns about $1,800 every month after all expenses are paid. Victoria looked completely shocked. But there was still one more thing. You should also know something about that dream house. Everyone waited. Ethan didn't buy that house to live in. Victoria stared at him. He bought it as an investment. I showed another document. He already found a family to rent it. A family moving from California. I pointed to the numbers. They will pay $3,800 every month in rent. The table became silent again. Then I looked at Victoria. That's actually more than the monthly mortgage payment you would have had, isn't it? Michael closed his eyes. Victoria looked down. How did you know about our loan problems? She asked quietly. You told Mom last week, I said. You were upset after losing the house. You told her everything. I paused. Mom told me because she was worried about you. Victoria looked embarrassed. She had never imagined that Ethan was the mystery buyer who had purchased her dream house. Finally, Ethan spoke. His voice was calm and kind. I didn't know it was your dream house, Aunt Victoria. He shrugged. I only knew it was a good investment. The neighborhood is growing. The inspection report looked great. The house was in good condition. And there are many families looking to rent in that area. Victoria stared at him. It was as if she were seeing him for the very first time. My father looked amazed. When did all of this happen? He asked. When did you buy 3 properties? Ethan smiled. Over the last 2 years. Everyone listened carefully. When I was 25, I started studying real estate. I read books. I watched videos. I learned how to understand housing markets. I saved money every month. The townhouse was my first purchase. He smiled again. I was nervous when I bought it, but it turned out to be a great decision. My mother looked at him proudly. Why didn't you tell us? Ethan shrugged. It felt like bragging. Then he smiled softly. And honestly, I like being treated like everyone else. He looked at Victoria. When people make comments about renters or technicians, it doesn't bother me. Everyone waited for him to continue. Then he said something very simple. Because I already know the truth. The table stayed quiet for a long moment. For the first time all evening, Victoria had nothing to say. Her opinion does not change my life, Ethan said calmly. But she is allowed to have her own opinion. Someone looked surprised. Even if she is wrong, they asked. Ethan nodded. Yes, people can think what they want. Sometimes they make guesses without knowing the truth. That happens all the time. Then he took another bite of his pasta and continued eating. Victoria stared at him. I still don't understand, she said. How can you afford all of this with a tech job? Ethan smiled. Tech jobs can pay very well, he explained. Especially the kind of work I do. But that is only part of the reason. I also live a simple life. Victoria frowned. What do you mean? I don't spend money on things I don't need, Ethan said. I don't buy a new car every few years. I don't buy expensive clothes. I don't spend money just to impress people. I buy what I need, save what I can, and invest the rest. And that works. Sophie asked. It works very well if you do it for a long time, Ethan answered. Money grows when you invest it. The longer you wait, the more it can grow. But you live in a tiny apartment, Victoria said. Ethan shook his head. Not exactly. I live in half of a duplex. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a nice backyard. I just tell family members it is a studio apartment because it is easier than explaining everything. For the first time all evening, Michael joined the conversation. So you're telling us that old Honda is still your car? Yes, Ethan replied. That thing is ancient, Michael said. Ethan laughed. Maybe, but it still works perfectly. I paid it off years ago. It costs very little to own. Why would I spend hundreds of dollars every month on a new car payment? Nobody answered. Every dollar I don't spend on a car payment can be invested instead, Ethan continued. Over time, those dollars become much more valuable. Victoria looked down at his clothes. What about your wardrobe? What about it? Ethan asked. You always wear jeans and t-shirts. Ethan smiled. They are comfortable. I work from home most of the week. Nobody cares what I wear. Then he added with a small grin. Well, nobody except you apparently. A few people around the table tried not to laugh. The waiter walked past the table. He noticed the uncomfortable mood and quietly walked away without saying anything. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Victoria surprised everyone. I'm sorry, she said quietly. The whole table became silent. I've been acting like a snob, she continued. And I think I owe you an apology. Ethan looked at her calmly. You've been making assumptions, he said. A lot of people do that. Victoria nodded. I guess I have. People see someone driving an old car, Ethan explained, and they think that person must be poor. They see simple clothes and think the person is struggling. But living simply and struggling are not the same thing. Victoria lowered her eyes. I feel really stupid right now. You shouldn't, Ethan replied kindly. Just remember to ask questions before judging someone. Sophie looked up from her phone. I think this is actually really cool, she said. You're like a secret millionaire. Everyone laughed. Ethan laughed too. I'm definitely not a millionaire. Not yet, Sophie asked. Ethan smiled. Maybe not yet, but I'm working toward financial freedom. My goal is to build enough income from investments that I won't have to work forever. Dad looked impressed. That takes discipline. It does, Ethan agreed. I'm proud of you, son, Dad said. Thanks, Dad. Victoria sat quietly for a moment. Then she spoke again. The house, she said softly. I still can't believe you bought that house. Ethan nodded. It was a good investment. It was my dream house, Victoria admitted. Ethan listened. It has everything we wanted, she continued. The extra bedrooms, the backyard, the neighborhood. We imagined our future there. Her voice became softer. We wanted 2 more children someday. The room became quiet. Sophie looked down. Michael stared at the table. You'll find another house, I said gently. Victoria shook her head. Not one like that. Ethan looked uncomfortable. He thought for a long moment before speaking. Maybe there is another option. Victoria looked up immediately. What do you mean? Ethan took a deep breath. If you and Michael truly want the house, maybe we can work something out. Everyone stared at him. You would do that? Victoria asked. I only signed a short lease with the tenants, Ethan explained. If you can qualify for a mortgage, I would be willing to sell the house to you. Victoria's eyes widened. Really? Ethan nodded. Yes. For how much? The same amount I paid. The entire table became silent. You mean no profit? Michael asked. No profit, Ethan said. I would just recover my costs. Victoria looked shocked. You would actually do that after the way I've treated you? Ethan smiled slightly. Family is family. Then he added, even when the family calls you a renter at dinner. Victoria laughed through her tears. Then she started crying. I am so sorry, Danny. Ethan nodded. You've been pretty hard on me over the years. I know. She wiped her eyes. I don't know why I did it. After a moment she continued. Maybe because I cared too much about appearances. Maybe because you never seemed to care what people thought. Ethan chuckled. That's probably true. Victoria sighed. The BMW is leased. Nobody said anything. We can barely afford it, she admitted. Michael nodded sadly. We thought we would have a much bigger bonus this year. When it didn't happen, everything became difficult. Ethan listened carefully. We're constantly worried about money, Michael admitted. One surprise expense could create real problems. Ethan nodded. Then you need to make changes. Like what? Victoria asked. Sell the BMW. Victoria looked surprised. Really? Yes. Buy something reliable and affordable. Stop paying for things that only make you look successful. Focus on things that actually improve your life. That sounds easy when you own multiple properties, Victoria said. Ethan shook his head. It wasn't easy. Everyone listened. When I bought my first property, I sacrificed a lot. I ate cheap food. I skipped vacations. I saved every extra dollar I could. For how long? Sophie asked. Years. Wow. It wasn't exciting, Ethan said. Nobody on social media would have thought it was impressive. But it helped me reach my goals. Mom reached over and squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you. Ethan smiled. You always say that. Not like this, Mom replied. I'm proud of the person you became. Ethan looked touched. You are thoughtful, she continued. You are kind. You work hard. And you understand what truly matters. The rest of dinner felt different. The tension slowly disappeared. For the first time in years, everyone was having an honest conversation. Victoria started asking questions instead of making judgments. How do rental properties work? How do you choose investments? How do you save so much money? Ethan answered every question patiently. Sometimes he opened spreadsheets on his phone and showed simple examples. By the end of the meal, Victoria seemed like a completely different person. When everyone left the restaurant, she walked over to Ethan. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For offering to sell us the house." Ethan nodded. "We're going to meet with a financial advisor," Victoria said. "We're going to look at our finances and see if we can make it work." "That's a good idea. And if we can't buy the house," she added. "I understand." Ethan smiled. "Good." Victoria laughed. "And I promise I'll stop judging people based on cars and clothes." "That would definitely help," Ethan said. Nearby, Sophie ran over to Ethan. "Can you teach me about investing?" Ethan smiled. "How much money do you have?" $300. "That's a great start." "Really?" "Absolutely." Sophie's eyes became wide. "What should I do?" "We'll talk about it sometime. The most important thing is that you're starting young." "Why does that matter?" "Because you have time." "Time?" "Yes. Time helps money grow." Sophie grinned. "That sounds awesome." "It is." As Ethan climbed into his old Honda and drove away, the rest of us watched. The car was old. The paint was faded. It certainly wasn't fancy. But now everyone saw it differently. Dad shook his head. "I completely underestimated him." "We all did," I said. Dad nodded. "The funny thing is that he never tried to impress anyone." "Exactly," I replied. "He just wanted to live his life." "Smart kid." "Smart man," I corrected. Dad smiled. "Yes, smart man." Over the next few months, something changed in our family. Victoria and Michael met with a financial advisor. They created a budget. They cut unnecessary spending. They reduced their debt. They started saving money. Slowly, their financial situation improved. 3 months later, they qualified for a mortgage. Just as he promised, Ethan sold them the house for exactly what he had paid. No profit. No tricks. Just a promise kept. At the closing meeting, Victoria hugged him. "Thank you," she said. "For the house. For the house and for the lesson." Ethan smiled. "I'm glad things worked out." "We've changed a lot," Victoria said. "I can see that. And we're happier too. That's what matters." Meanwhile, Ethan continued moving forward. Not long after selling the house, he bought another property. This one was a small apartment building with 6 units. "Another one?" I asked. Ethan laughed. "Another one. Why this property?" "Better cash flow," he explained. "And I've learned a lot over the years." He was still driving the same Honda. Still wearing simple clothes. Still living modestly. But little by little, he was building a strong future. Most people looked at him and saw an ordinary man. They saw an old car. Simple clothes. A quiet personality. What they didn't see was the discipline, patience, and planning behind everything he did. For years, people had underestimated him. Now they finally understood. Ethan never cared about looking rich. He cared about building a good life. And by focusing on what truly mattered instead of what only looked impressive, he had quietly built something remarkable. As his parent, I could not have been more proud.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं, तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है, दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं, तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है, दिल का हर खोने की राहों में गम ही लिखा था। सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा, मगर खामोश है दुनिया, कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा। बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत। मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर।